Am I the asshole for getting upset that my grandmother wants to charge me rent for having my boyfriend over? I, 25F, have been living with my parents, siblings, grandmother, and her husband for most of my life. I would share a room with my siblings, but my grandmother offered me a room to myself since I am the eldest of 3. I offered to pay rent because it was a great sacrifice to give up a room that she can easily rent to someone else. She declined and said that I can start paying her once I finish my master's degree next year. Since then, I became unemployed and haven't had luck finding another job despite having some interviews. Even retail jobs weren't hiring me because my experience is in education and not retail. I've honestly become very depressed since I've been laid off because I have worked since I was 18. A few months ago, I met my boyfriend, 26M, and we have been incredibly close ever since. He has even been involved with my family and helps with anything he could. My whole family loves him. However, my grandmother has started to get upset that he would stay over. He stays over sometimes because he is too tired to drive back home 20–40 minutes, depending on traffic. I thought that it would be okay that he stayed because it is my room and he isn't bothering anyone. She also doesn't like that he smokes weed. He is a veteran and injured his knees from his service. He prefers smoking over having the side effects from pain medication. I was honestly bothered that she told me to convince him to stop smoking because 1. She is anti-Western medicine. 2. My cousin, her grandson would smoke weed and she wouldn't tell him to stop. 3. My dad, her son used to smoke and she wouldn't try to stop him. 4. It is not my place to tell a grown man to stop smoking weed since it is his body. She started complaining that he left the bathroom stinking of weed. I apologized and told her I would start spraying the bathroom after he left. He doesn't smoke in the house, his clothes just stink sometimes. I try to put Febreze or my perfume on him so the smell doesn't bother her. He also apologizes and changes or covers the smell so it doesn't bother her. Fast forward to today. She told my mom she is going to talk to me. She said she is going to start charging me rent because I have my boyfriend sleep over. I am honestly upset because now the conditions of me staying in my room have changed. I am also unemployed, so I will start paying her using my credit card, savings. I understand that it is her house, but I wouldn't have accepted the room if I knew that I would have to change what I do. She told my mom that she should have pushed me to work at least McDonald's to pay my share. My mom thinks it is unfair but thinks I should just pay her. My dad thinks that it is fair that my grandmother charges me. I don't want to sound like a freeloader, but I am doing the best I can to get a job while also having a happy social life at the same time. Edit. Another point I forgot to mention is that my younger brother, 18 male, has his girlfriend, 21 female, sleep over sometimes. She has never mentioned to him about charging rent. Edit. Thank you guys for pointing out the error of my ways. I mentioned below that I did housework and chores for her and her husband as a form of contribution. I thought that doing so would suffice as payment until I got a job. It looks like I'll just start paying rent so I can have the freedoms I want while having my grandmother benefit in some way. As for everyone judging my boyfriend for smoking weed, it's disappointing to see the negative image he has because of it. He genuinely can't walk from the pain sometimes or sit for long periods of time because it's so painful. He has tried pain medication, but it mostly made him sleepy and have negative side effects that affected his job performance and everyday lifestyle. He does not smoke inside the house and actually feels guilty for smelling. He is so used to the smell that he has me smell him to see if it's okay for him to come in. He is a very kind person and not a pothead bum, as others may think. I am not putting him above my grandmother, but I do want people to consider that he is not intentionally trying to bother anyone. He doesn't even know about this issue. You are the asshole. Grandma loves you, of course doesn't charge you. She has no such attachment to your boyfriend. You haven't been together that long and it seems like she doesn't like him. She doesn't mind subsidizing you, but not him. Yup, you're the It's your grandmother's house and it sounds like you're not respecting her boundaries. Weed is normal nowadays. I bet it wasn't as normal when she was younger. I honestly wouldn't feel comfortable having a woman, even my girlfriend, sleep over if I was living with my grandma. But they have both already passed and were very old-fashioned. You are the asshole. She's told you her expectations. Whether you're paying rent or not, it's her home and you are a roommate, not a tenant. All the rationalizations about unemployment and his service do not make the slightest difference to her prerogative. Info. How often is he staying over? She may be changing her position on rent, but it sounds like you have recently changed how you use the room. You are the asshole. I don't want to sound like a freeloader, but I am doing the best I can to get a job while also having a happy social life at the same time. The thing is, happy social life is bothering the person kind enough to give you your own room in a home you don't pay for. In regards to your edit, you are 25 and your brother is 18. You are the asshole. She gave you a room to stay, not your boyfriend. He lives 20 to 40 minutes away and complains about the traffic. WTF? How about he leaves 20 to 40 minutes earlier? Also, he smokes weed around your grandma's home. That's a heck no in my book. If grandma isn't okay with it, it's her house or rules. Maybe you should move out and be on your own. Soft, you are the asshole. Honestly, regardless of a double standard, it's your grandma's house. She doesn't like the smell of weed, and if he always smells like it and is there every day, I'm sure you can see how that would irk her. It sounds like she's wanting to charge you rent in hopes that you will stop bringing your boyfriend over all the time. Which isn't necessarily the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, she kinda gets a say on who is in her house and how often. I understand why you're upset, but you are the asshole. Grandma's house equals grandma's rules. Does your brother live at grandma's too? You said nothing is said when his girlfriend stays over. IDT, your grandma has an issue with your boyfriend other than that she is worried that he is distracting you from your future. Even if you have to take a job unrelated to your field of study, it may help you focus on working your way back into the field. Am I the asshole for calling my neighbor entitled and implying that she's racist? This account is a throwaway because I don't have a Reddit account, but I often lurk around this subreddit. For reference, I, 17 female, am from South America. I have an accent, curly hair, and tan easily. So naturally my skin is darker than someone who is European. However, I have lived in the condo in America, which I live in currently since I was a child. The reason I have an accent is because I usually only speak Portuguese at home and often speak to my relatives from Brazil in Portuguese. So the condo I live in also has a pool for everyone who lives here. It's a very nice pool and no visitors are allowed to use it unless they are accompanied by someone who owns a condo. So naturally a lot of people are wary of visitors. Recently a new family moved into the unit below me, and they have already filed 5-7 complaints against my family and me within the few months they've been here. The landlord has ignored all of these because, quite frankly, they're frivolous. For example, one of them was a complaint against the TV volume in our unit, but our TV was broken at the time and we only have one TV. Yesterday was especially frustrating. I was using the aforementioned pool, not only because I wanted to, but because it was my duty to test the quality yesterday afternoon. The neighbors also came along with their children. I had no issue with this whatsoever and continued to use the pool. A few minutes after they were done putting down their stuff, the woman came to me and said, "Excuse me, only people who live here are allowed to use the pool." She said this in a tone like she assumed I didn't know much English or as if I was dumb. I told her that I indeed live here and showed her that the key I used to get into the pool was on my chair. She looked slightly annoyed, but it was fine. I honestly didn't care. Then she went back to her chairs with her husband, I'm assuming, and started to very loudly talk about how foreign and dark I looked. Honestly didn't give a shit because it is true that I didn't look white. However, it was insulting that they said it as if it was a bad thing. I had to go eat lunch anyway, so I started to pack up my stuff and the woman asked why I was leaving so soon. I told her that I had to go make lunch for myself. She then started to follow me out, and I asked if she could stop following me. She asked, "Why are you so eager to get me off your back if you have nothing to hide?" I then told her, once again, that I live here and she must be very entitled and, quite frankly, sheltered to assume otherwise just because of how I looked. She then scoffed and told me that the landlord would hear about this. I am aware now that I shouldn't have made the comment on race. I was just honestly very pissed. Am I the asshole? Edit. This is my update on this situation. Like many of the comments suggested, I went to my landlord, and she and I walked to the pool where she showed me that there was a camera near the entrance-exit area and that if the confrontation happened there, then it would have been recorded. I told her that yes, it did happen there, so we went back to her unit and watched what was recorded yesterday, around the time I remembered leaving. She and I both saw the confrontation, and while there was no audio, it was obvious what was going on based on body language. My landlord was livid and not only offered to help me file a complaint but also said that she would take it up with management tomorrow. She then asked if she could save the video on her computer, as recordings are deleted after 3 days, and I said it was fine. I am not going to upload the recording because not only do I not have it but also I'm wearing a bathing suit in it and I am a minor, so I don't think it's safe to post it on the internet. My parents also know and are also upset about it. Thank you all again for encouraging me to talk to my landlord about it. Not the asshole. You need to contact your landlord to talk about the harassment you're experiencing from this neighbor. Her comments about you were racist and disgusting and her trying to follow and question you can't be tolerated. You need to speak up ASAP. Not the asshole. And you should have made it about race. Most people don't immediately start hounding people at the pool when they have just moved in. She was making an assumption, and it was based on your race or age, or both. Not the asshole. You implied she's racist because she is. Ela a uma puta. Not the asshole. You should have called her out on her racism, honestly. The fact that she was heard complaining to her husband about the color of your skin, and then proceeded to follow you in the hopes of catching you lying just because you're not white is absurd. What you said was reasonable and mature compared to how others would react. I'm not sure I could be that mature in a similar situation. Not the asshole. The landlord should hear about how she was harassing and profiling you. She's the one who brought race into it, and you were perfectly justified in defending yourself. Not the asshole, but you should inform your landlord about her behavior. She sounds like a despicable racist arsehole. And told me that the landlord would hear about this. Oh, I so hope the landlord hears about this. And then he takes that woman to task for harassing his longtime residents. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Whatever her motivation was, she was clearly disturbing you. Hope you filed a complaint against her. Am I the asshole because I don't want to pay this artist for a tattoo design I commissioned them for? I wanted to get a sleeve tattoo and figured the best way to start was to commission a tattoo artist. Given the options I had when choosing an artist, he was the most expensive option. His work looked good and he was confident in his ability, so I gave him the job. I wasn't super specific about the tattoo itself but gave a general idea and a bunch of images for him to work with. My only real specific instructions were the theme, and I wanted a guy with a parachute because I was airborne in the military. I was specific about why I wanted it and about the type of parachute and sent pictures to show. He gave me an idea of what he intended and I agreed. Though he had taken an image of a face melting and wanted to give the guy a melting face, I understood the confusion there and said I didn't want the paratrooper to have a melting face. He replied, "Okay, no face melting," and went forward with the design. Here is where things get a bit complicated. I did okay the design he told me he wanted to make with the clarification of non-face melting. When I got the tattoo sketch back, the guy had a melting face and the parachute was rectangle like a skydiving one, not airborne. I also wasn't thrilled with the way it looked in the sketch. I told him as much and he got defensive and referenced that I said I liked the idea, which I had. I showed a friend and they said it would look good with color, and after I contemplated it, it grew on me and I agreed it would probably look good in color and on an arm. But I needed those two issues fixed. I also had the artist change one of the sketched images to another thing. I sent another picture of the military parachute for the artist to reference. The artist changed the face and the other sketched piece, but the parachute was still off. It was now round like a military parachute, but he left a middle piece that was not shown on any of my references. He fixed that and I okayed it to be colored. Here is the last issue. Now that it's all colored, it has become clear the way it had drawn is a bit odd. The paratrooper is in front for everything, but the same thing the paratrooper is in front of the parachute he's attached to is partially behind. So layer-wise it goes paratrooper, object, parachute, which makes no sense. I could probably just have the artist move some elements, but with it colored and everything I have a feeling that will make it so he has to restart on some level. I also okayed it to go forward, but something like this feels like an amateur mistake and the wait has been almost a month longer than originally planned. Promised, and he has constantly stated he understands what I want with references and then did something else. I'm just kind of done with the whole thing. If I did pay for this sleeve I probably wouldn't be getting it tattooed, and I've just thrown hundreds of dollars to someone for something I have issues with. Edit. The tattoo designer and artist would not be the same person. When I said, done, I meant the coloring, and it would be done beyond the tattoo design still has the issue of the parachute behind the object, and in order to fix this the object would need to be moved, which wouldn't be a simple task for the designer or the tattooer. Edit 2. To clarify one issue. The tattoo itself is mostly fine, it's the parachute that has issues. The paratrooper is layer 1, The object behind paratrooper is layer 2, and the parachute is layer 3. Designer will not make changes now that the coloring is done, or I'd just have that changed. Edit 3. I have paid the artist and will have the parachute issue adjusted with the tattooer. Thanks everyone for your feedback. Edit 4. The designer has a 100% satisfaction guarantee. The choice to actually pay the artist would be mine. No product had been delivered at that point. I wasn't trying to take their art, also not pay them. You are the asshole. You don't have to get the tattoo, but you still have to pay him for his time. He spent many hours designing a tattoo for you. You have to pay him for the work. Just like any other artist or designer. If you hired someone to design a logo, you'd have to pay them for the time they spend designing, whether or not you choose to go forward and use their design. You are the asshole on 2 accounts. 1. You are the one okaying it. If you don't like it, then don't approve things. You are paying him. 2. You still have to pay for something, especially when you have already approved it. You are the asshole. You have gone back and forth with adjustments and okayed the design to be colored. It's you giving the art direction and the guy doing the art is listening to you and should be paid for his work. You are the asshole. Sorry, but you've got to pay the guy for the work he's done. You are the asshole, but I do understand some of the frustration. Here is the last issue. Now that it's all colored, it has become clear the way it is drawn is a bit odd. This is the biggest one for me. You approved of the design, then he colored it and you don't like it anymore, not because of the coloring, because of the design that you approved. There is always some risk that you won't like a design when you give an artist some creative freedom. If you had laid out exactly what you wanted, it would be a bit different. If I hired an architect to design a building, approved the design, then saw the 3D model and didn't like it anymore, I still have to pay him for the work he did. You are the asshole for suggesting you don't pay for the work they have done so far. Don't get the tattoo, but pay them for all the drawing and changes they made. You are the asshole. You knew from the beginning you didn't like the design and should have cut your losses at that point. But instead, you made him go back and redo it several times. Pay the man what he is owed and then move on to another artist. You are the asshole. You already okayed the artist at multiple steps and have had this artist do hours of work for you. To not pay them for that labor which you asked them and okayed them to do would be incredibly fucked up. You can always ask them to change the design, but not paying them at this point when you could have backed out way earlier is a huge dick move. Am I the asshole for being mad at boyfriend for buying friends a luxurious gift and not telling me about it? Throw away, because I would be embarrassed if our roommates saw this, but the plan is to share with the boyfriend. Our roommates closed on a house in April, but the house has a shitload of problems, so they are still living with us while they repair it. Boyfriend told them to stop paying rent. This led to an initial argument of ours because he has a history of letting people just live here like money doesn't mean anything, and although the roommates did not know about the argument, they continued paying rent because they are solid upstanding adults. I am not completely cold-hearted. I think maybe 1 month of free rent is a nice going-away present, but 3+ months is just too much. To his credit, my boyfriend found a better job that will yield him an extra $400 a month after subtracting the rent we will be losing when they move out. I offered to up my own rent by $200 to help out. He wanted to buy the roommates some cool housewarming presents. Pretty much all of his ideas were in the $800 range. I complained that this was too much money and threw out some alternatives in the $400 range. I tried to be very gentle about this because he hates talking about money. For some background, before his raise and with rent he made about $100,000 and I make about $35,000, 1 year left of PhD program. He has almost no emergency fund. I have enough saved up for about 3 months of our bills, but have been telling him since we started dating 2 years ago that he needs to save for emergencies. We also have talked about trying to have a baby in December, which is why I saved all that money in the first place. He was paid out about $5,000 from his PTO switching jobs and spent all of it on a home office, another luxury, but okay, and necessities for his sick dad, I agreed was necessary. Anyways, he was talking to one of the roommates about buying them a $2,000 mattress for the present. I told him afterwards that this is way too much money. He said he told them to stop paying rent so he sees it as their money anyways. I told him that the roommates continued paying rent because it is the right thing to do, so it is actually his money. Also, his dad is really sick and we need to save money for when his insurance stops paying in 20 days. He was getting kind of mad, so we dropped it for a few days. I brought it up again about a week later and explained that it was too much money, We really need to save right now. He needs a surgery. His dad is sick. Are we going to have a baby or what? A lot of people keep getting fired at his new job, etc. But then I also kind of phrased it in a, what should we do when we disagree about these things way. I thought we came to a nice solution of not spending more than $500 without consulting the other person. We kind of dropped it for now. 2 days later the roommates are all excited and keep saying thanks for the mattress. I'm like, what the fuck? Apparently he already bought it before we had time to talk about for the second time. He didn't mention it to me during that argument, which I see as lying. He just thinks it's okay to buy whatever he wants because it was their money, and he doesn't care about money, and wishes I didn't care so much about money. Am I the asshole for being pissed off and wanting to save for our futures? We argued again and he agreed to save $10,000 by the end of December and 6 months of expenses in a year. But he's acting like I'm a huge asshole for bringing these things up and forcing him to be financially responsible. I said it's not an ultimatum. I just don't want a child with someone who I won't trust to provide for the child in case I die. TLDR. Boyfriend spent close to $2,000 on present for roommates after I asked him not to. He didn't tell me when he bought it. I found out from them. He has almost no savings and a lot of expenses coming up. Not the asshole, and don't you dare have a kid with this dude. He sees money very differently from you and it's going to cause many more problems than it'll solve if things continue in the status quo you have now. You for thinking this is a good guy to reproduce with and him for just throwing money everywhere, even though he can afford to. You two need to sit and discuss finances, even though he hates discussing money. You also suck for trying to control who pays rent or who doesn't. It isn't your house, your name isn't on it, you two aren't married. Not the asshole, but you two are obviously not compatible. Do not try for a child in December. Not the asshole and op. Consider this your warning not to have children with this person. Not the asshole, and do not tie your life any tighter to this man. He has shown you that he does not value financial stability, nor does he value honesty nor open communication. He has shown you he will do what he wants with money no matter how you feel and no matter how ridiculous the expenditure is. $2,000 on a mattress for friends? After you guys agreed to only spend $500? No? Not the asshole, and maybe stop ignoring the many red flags you wrote in your post. Not the asshole, but if you see a future with this guy, please get some financial or couples counseling. You need to get on somewhat the same page with your finances before you really merge your money. You are the asshole. It's his house and his money. Unless the two of you have some arrangement about shared finances, then he's allowed to do as he sees fit. And since clearly you don't, yet, agree about money issues, you better put that baby talk on the back burner.